Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about something that was randomly crossing my mind last night. It made me think about the series The Darkness. Now, what I'm specifically referencing is the comic book series, which obviously I'm still not well versed in. I think the publishing, I kept thinking was it Dark Horse? I didn't think it was Vertigo, but it's a publication called Top Cow? But that comic book series, it was adapted into like 2 video games, and I'm still not sure where that holds, because I think there was talk of a Darkness 3. Okay, so I was just really quickly looking it up. It's still kind of in that rumor mill of like, are there potentially any like chances of there being a Darkness 3 after all this time? Well, that's kind of here nor there. Well, technically here nor there, but obviously it's a storyline I'm not well versed in too much. I know a little bit just because I've seen bits and pieces years ago of the video games, and once again, I've never read the comic book. But really quickly, to anyone that's unfamiliar with The Darkness is about, it's about this basically, I think they label him as like a New York mafioso. His name is Jackie. He works for like a mafia, and he's kind of like a hitman and stuff. Basically, he gets betrayed. I want to say, this might be spoiler, he gets betrayed by the organization. Let's leave it at that without going into specifics, because I think I remember specifically who betrayed him. But it's almost kind of like a Crow situation where he basically gets possessed by this entity known as the Darkness. It's like this grand, like obviously it's like the darkness itself. It's this sentient entity, and he basically gets superhuman powers from it. And at least from the video game side of things, it's just like a straight up like, oh, like it's kind of a first person shooter, like very violent, rip people to pieces. The darkness eats people. It's that type of story. Interestingly enough, it kind of reminds me, because I think the comic books actually came out around the same time. No, because I think Preacher's actually way older, actually. It's a couple years older. I think Preacher kind of ended before this story. Regardless, it kind of reminds me of the whole Genesis and Jesse situation. It's very similar in that regard of like this cosmic being choosing a host. And I think there was a specific reason why it chose Jackie. I don't know if it was a bloodline reason or was there something else to it. Like I said, I don't remember the ins and outs of it. But, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think this is, especially we're living in a day and age where like so much comic book stuff is getting adapted that I feel like this would be like the perfect thing to adapt. I could definitely see like a Netflix or maybe like an HBO or Warner Brothers or maybe even an Amazon Prime like adapting this, because I think this, because I'd be curious to see like where they would necessarily take it, because at least I think in the second game it goes a little more cosmic, like more like on the more, because the series actually dabbles in it doesn't just stay on the human realm, it stands on the more cosmic celestial realm as well. But I think the first game is mainly like, because it's about him killing basically monsters and stuff. So I'd be curious, like if they were to adapt it, like would they do that with like maybe like with the first bit? I mean, because from what I was looking into, like there was movie stuff in the works potentially. The last thing I was reading in articles about anything movie related was like back in 2012. But it's like, to me, it's like it's a property I personally would want to see more so adapted in TV format, because I think it can lend itself to a series format, especially because you could do like, hey, season 1 could be like, hey, him just going after other mafia type of people, and then season 2 you could potentially start branching out a little bit, kind of like if I had to compare it to another property, and it's a weird property to compare it to because obviously it's like it's very apples and oranges, it would be a little Lucifer. How Lucifer is kind of like, obviously the comic book series, and the character has always been a little more cosmic, and they've kept it very grounded for the show. Maybe keep a little bit of that element for season 1, but then like obviously expand out with the story. And I think what also sparked this too is not only just because something I was watching last night at the time of recording this, I was watching something that kind of sparked that, because I hadn't thought about that series in a while. But also, I think what also inspired that too is like, well, there's the all that news that came out about the Sandman on Netflix, like the casting news, which kind of put that back in my brain, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a very cosmic story in its own right. So that kind of got me thinking about this as well. So I think, like I said, I think this show could lend itself very nicely to it. It could be, I mean, depending like. Because this could definitely be one of those, like, this could get, it could be a very brutal show. I mean, just from the video game alone, that was a very brutal video game. So it was like seeing that translated to on TV. Because once again, TV's my preferable format. So I would love to see something done with it, especially because, like I said, there's been stuff in the work. I mean, there's a lot of comic book properties, and adaptations of just stuff in general, but and definitely in particular with comic books, where it's like there's been stuff that's been in the work for years that just hasn't really been tackled yet. So I think you could definitely, especially like tone-wise, you could definitely like I mean, it probably mirror more so the movie than the TV show, because what I'm referencing is The Crow. Like, tonally, it probably feel a lot more like the first Crow movie rather than in comparison to like the TV show, because the TV show I feel like tonally wasn't as obviously as dark as the movie, but like if you took like the tone of the movie and put that over the course of like a very like a TV show, like I said, like an HBO darkness series would be pretty dope. But I think Netflix could capture that like brutal darkness to it. It's a very interesting, like I said, just from the little bit I remember from the video games. Once again, I'm not well versed in the comic book. It's a comic book series I'm really interested to pick up, just because it's like I said, it's a series I kind of forget, like, because there's movies called The Darkness. There's actually a handful of them, so like it kind of like always fools me a little bit when I see that, and I was like, all right, it's not related in any shape or form to the comic book stuff. Which is interesting, because like some of those, at least one of those was like a, well, at least two are like horror movies related to like the darkness kind of being this sentient thing, which ironically enough kind of still fits the mold of it, but obviously being completely different, unrelated things. But yeah, like I said, it was something in the back of my mind where I was like, oh yeah, like I thought about it recently, and I was just like, oh, I'd love to see that kind of get adapted into like a TV show or something, because I think it do really well as a TV show. Like I said, it was a movie, cool, fine, but once again, I'm just always preferable to TV. I would love to see what they could do with this being serialized, but obviously this is just kind of my thoughts about it. I'd love to get to know your thoughts, especially if you are someone, because like I said, I'm a newbie to this. I don't really, like I said, it was years ago I watched someone play the video game, so I'm not as well versed in the story, plus I've never read the comic. So to someone that is more well versed in the video games, or more well versed in the comics, would you be interested in seeing this kid adapted, you know, a movie or TV show? Maybe you're more inclined to be like, no, I'd rather see it as a movie. Or are you someone that's like, no, maybe you're on the video game side of things and you more so you're like, give me the Darkness 3, especially if you never get the Darkness 3. Maybe this could, you know, be another, you know, thing for you where it's like, oh, I can see this getting adapted, so maybe that kind of fills that void a little bit for you. I'm just curious where people's thoughts are about any potential adaptations, or just this property in general, and you know what its future could be, and you know your thoughts about it. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.